The tale from the Chao Phraya River Basin presents the legend of the Tha Rua Thong marsh, a story of love, reverence for all things, and a curse. That day after the rain, the sky cast a golden evening glow over the Chao Phraya River. A large golden junk sailed along the current, shimmering under the twilight sun. On the deck stood a young Chinese man in red silk brocade, next to a beautiful Thai woman in traditional Ayutthaya wedding attire. "Long, I still can't believe we've made it to this day," Mali whispered, tightening her gloved hand in the young man's grasp. Chen Long turned to look at his fiancée with gentle eyes. "From the moment I first saw you at the Zhenghe delegation's reception, my heart knew we were meant to be one." From the ship's quarterdeck, Chen Taoye gazed at his son and future daughter-in-law with deep contentment. "I arranged this entire fleet of golden junks for you, my son. I hope your love will shine as brightly as this gold." The sound of Chinese lutes harmonizing with Thai xylophones drifted on the wind, surrounding the distinguished guests gathered for the luxurious wedding on the water. Several days after the wedding ceremony, the golden junk sailed towards Wat Sing District to make married. Neng stood at the bow, looking ahead with concern. "Master Chen Taoye," Neng said in a solemn tone. "Ahead lies the area of the whirlpool and the Jui Shrine. All travelers passing through must cease music, song, and abstain from alcohol as a sign of respect." Chen Taoye nodded but turned to speak to the crew instead. "Keep serving the guests their wine. Today is an auspicious day." "But, Master," Neng attempted to warn again. "Don't worry so much, guide," Chen Taoye cut him off. "We have the Chinese gods protecting us." Chen Long and Malay, who were conversing at the stern, overheard this exchange. Malay felt a slight unease. "Long, we should heed Neng's warning," Malay said. Chen Long smiled. "My father surely knows what he's doing. Don't worry." The sounds of music and singing continued to ring out even as the ship passed the silent and mysteriously potent Chao Phraya Jui Shrine. Suddenly, the wind shifted violently. The bright, clear sky darkened in the blink of an eye. The river water began to churn, forming wide, powerful whirlpools. "Whirlpool! A whirlpool is here!" the helmsman screamed in terror. The golden junk began to spin, caught in the vicious current growing stronger by the second. The music and revelry came to an abrupt halt, replaced by screams and chaos. Neng rushed to Chen Long and Mali. "You two get to shore now." But it was too late. A massive swirling vortex pulled the entire golden junk into the depths. The light from the ship lanterns and the glow of the moon were swallowed by the all-consuming darkness. Chen Long held Mali tightly in his arms and cried out, "No matter what happens, we'll always be together." "Forever," Mali replied through her tears, just before the entire world went utterly black. Hundreds of years later, some child was driving along a rural road near a large marsh on a full moon night. He heard strange music coming from the direction of the marsh. "What's that sound?" he whispered, recording on his phone as he followed the sound. What he saw made him freeze. The marsh, which should have been dark under the moonlight, was instead shimmering with a golden light. Upon an ancient Chinese junk floating in the middle of the marsh, shadowy figures were dancing and feasting merrily. Suddenly, the shadow of a man in red brocade turned to look at him and said, "Visitor, do you see us?" Sunchai glanced down at the reflection in the water. It was not human shapes, but dozens of large crocodiles. "This is the curse of the Tha Rua Thong marsh," a mysterious voice echoed from the water. Only those who come here on a full moon night will learn the truth. Somchai stood stunned at the marsh edge, his heart trembling with terror and awe. The shadows dancing on the golden junk seemed so vivid, yet their reflection in the water was of dozens of giant crocodiles, their forms covering nearly half the marsh. Visitor, do you see us? The voice echoed again. The young man in ancient red Chinese attire stepped to the ship's rail. His face was illuminated by the moonlight, but his eyes were deeply sorrowful. I see, Somchai answered, his voice shaking. Who are you? Why are you here? The young man smiled bitterly. My name is Chenlong. This is Malay, my betrothed, he said as a beautiful woman in ancient Thai attire walked to stand beside him. We have been cursed to dwell in this marsh for hundreds of years. A curse? For what? Malay began to speak, her voice soft yet clear. For disrespect, we did not heed the warning of Ning, our guide. We refused to stop the music, song, and drinking as we passed before the Jui Shrine. The whirlpool then dragged our entire ship down. Chen Long continued, but the greater transgression was our disrespect for nature. My father believed wealth and power could protect us from everything. Suddenly, a deep, rumbling roar came from beneath the water. A colossal crocodile surfaced, its eyes holding an unsettlingly human gaze. Father, Chenlong whispered. Somchai stepped back. That is, my father, Chen Taoye, and all who were aboard. Malay answered with tears. By day, we are the crocodiles that guard this marsh and the golden wreck. But on the night of the full moon, we can become human again for a brief time. The sound of Chinese lutes began again, but this time it was mingled with weeping. Can you help us? Chenlong pleaded. Can you free us from this curse? Before Somchai could answer, the moonlight was blotted out by clouds. Everything began to fade. The golden chunk, the light, and the human shadows all vanished into the darkness, leaving only the still, silent marsh and the giant crocodile slowly sinking beneath the surface. Somchai was left with only the memory and the final echoing word of Malay. Seek the truth at Wat Paklong Maham Thao. The next day, Somchai traveled to Wat Paklong Maham Thao, an ancient temple on the banks of the Chao Phraya River, filled with an atmosphere of peace and sanctity. Venerable Father, Somchai paid respect to an elderly monk meditating under a Bodhi tree. I have a strange matter I wish to consult you about. The monk, a disciple of Luang Pusuk, slowly opened his eyes. Is it about the Tha Rua Thong marsh? Somchai was startled. You already know, Venerable? Several people have come to tell similar stories. The monk nodded. But most either think it was an illusion or are too frightened to ever go back. The monk invited Somchai into his kuti. On the walls were several old paintings. One of them depicted a Chinese junk sinking into a whirlpool, with people on board reaching out for help. This is the real event that happened over 100 years ago. The monk began to explain. My teacher, meaning Luang Pusuk, knew this story well because he once met Ning, the sole survivor of that tragedy. There was a survivor, Somchai asked with keen interest. Ning survived because he managed to jump ashore just before the ship sank, the monk explained. But what he discovered the next day was a new marsh that had formed miraculously and the golden junk resting at its bottom. He told of how those aboard were cursed to become crocodiles guarding this marsh. The monk brought out an old notebook. Ning entrusted this record to my teacher before he disappeared mysteriously. He wrote that this curse would end when someone willingly helps atone for their sins by accomplishing three things. Somchai looked up with hope. What three things, Venerable? First, restore respect to the Chao Phraya Jui they once gone. Second, help the spirit of Chen Taoye accept his own mistake. Third, build a bridge to complete the love between Chen Long and Malay. The monk looked at Somchai seriously. But accomplishing these things is not easy at all and may be dangerous. I want to help them, Somchai replied without hesitation. I saw the pain in their eyes. When the night of the full moon arrived, Somchai returned to the Tha Rua Thong marsh, carrying the offerings prepared by the monk. 3 incense sticks, white lotus flowers, frankincense, and water from the Chao Phraya River that flowed past the temple. He began the ritual as instructed by the monk. The first step was to ask for forgiveness from the Chao Phraya Jui Shrine. I, on behalf of the Golden Junk's crew, ask for forgiveness and offer apologies to Chao Phraya Jui for the disrespect shown to this sacred place, Somchai said as he lit the incense. Suddenly, the wind picked up forcefully, rustling the leaves around the marsh. A deep, rumbling roar echoed from beneath the water. The giant crocodile surfaced, but this time its gaze was not fierce like before. Father is listening. Chen Long appeared once more, this time with Mali and all the shadows from the golden junk. Chen Taoye, in his crocodile form, slowly transformed into an elderly man, his ancient Chinese attire still intact. I understand now. His voice rang out for the first time. I was wrong to think wealth was everything, wrong to scorn the sacred. Tears streamed down Chen Taoye's face. And worst of all, I led my son and everyone on the ship to their doom. Chen Long ran to him and embraced his father. It wasn't your fault alone. We all played a part. Mali joined the embrace. What matters is we are still together and have learned from our mistakes. Somchai felt the atmosphere around the marsh begin to change. The moonlight grew brighter, the temperature warmer, and the sense of sorrow gradually faded. There is still one final thing, the voice of Luang Pusuk resonated from behind. Somchai turned to see the monk walking towards them, holding a lotus flower. The love between Chen Long and Malay remains incomplete because their wedding ceremony was interrupted by tragedy. The monk raised the lotus flower. As a representative of Buddhism and of the land of Thailand, I bestow my blessing and approve the union of you two. A golden light emanated from the lotus, dispelling the darkness from the marsh. Chen Long and Malay stood facing each other, their hands joined. Mali, will you be my companion in the afterlife? Chen Long asked. I always have been, Mali replied with a smile. In that moment, the golden chunk began to play brilliantly. All the crocodile gradually transformed completely into human forms. The usually still marsh water rippled with small waves as if rejoicing in this event. The first light of dawn broke over the horizon. Chen Long turned to Somchai and the monk. The time has come for us to depart. Mali stepped towards Somchai. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for setting us free. We will never forget your kindness, Chen Taoye said, bowing deeply. The entire Golden Junk crew began to fade into the golden light of morning. The junk slowly rose, as if melting into the first rays of the sun. But just before they vanished completely, Chen Long threw something to Somchai. It was an ancient Chinese gold ring. Keep this as a memento, his voice echoed from the emptiness. And tell our story. Let future generations know how crucial respect for nature and the sacred truly is. Once everything had disappeared, Songchai glanced around and saw that the marsh had transformed. White lotus flowers bloomed across the entire water surface, and at its center, the ancient wreck of a ship protruded slightly, a tangible piece of historical evidence. The monk smiled. Now the Tha Rua Thong marsh has returned to its normal state. All the spirits have moved on to their peaceful rest. But the legend will remain, Songchai said, speaking up. I will record this story for future generations to learn from. A year later, the Tha Rua Thong marsh had been developed into a historical and cultural tourist site. A small museum documented the tale of the golden junk and its lesson on respect for nature. Songchai regularly served as a guide for visitors. This story teaches us that no matter how wealthy or powerful we may be, we must never forget to respect nature, respect local culture, and respect the sacred. Songchai concluded, pointing toward the shipwreck protruding from the water, because sometimes the price of disrespect can be far greater than we can imagine. On nights with a full moon, visitors could sometimes still hear faint strains of traditional music and see the loving silhouettes of two figures walking hand in hand along the marsh edge. But this time, it was a vision of happiness, not sorrow. And at the newly restored Chao Phraya Shrine by the Chao Phraya River, a steady stream of people came to pay their respects. Everyone had learned to quiet their songs and refrain from drinking alcohol when passing this sacred site. Thus, the legend of the Tha Rua Thong marsh was no longer merely a frightening ghost story. Instead, it had transformed into a life lesson passed down through generations, a lesson about true love, responsibility, and respect for all things around us. For in the end, it is not gold or power that matters most, but the love and respect we have for one another, for nature, and for the sacred that leads us to true happiness.